Greg, are you hearing? You seeing a green light show up? Greg, are you seeing that green light show up there on the? Yep.
Yeah. So you'll be introduced by somebody.
Someone's introducing me to introduce her?
Yes. It's the either Kate or Jackson, and then you'll sit up here. I know. They'll welcome everybody right at 11:10.
And then I can do this?
Yeah. We made this platform, so now
That's
it's not
really
as...
awesome.
But can you see? You'll be able to adjust things.
It's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll just do this.
So you can come up and you can sit in the front row and then, or wherever you want to sit, and then when he says your name, yeah, you can come on up. You look great. I love your tie.
It's Olivia. Olivia just over there. I come up this way, but after I'm done introducing, then I'll do the thing. That way. Do you understand?
Good morning, Upper School. Welcome to the senior speeches for the class of 2022. We ask that you silence your devices to honor today's speakers. Our first speaker today is Olivia Milo. Olivia will be introduced by Mr. Lerner.
Why, hello, I'm Mr. Lerner. Before she takes the stage, I'm honored to chat about Olivia Milo, musician, visual artist, animal lover, athlete, academic, and overall just beautiful person. I didn't know what I was getting into when the second Mello came along. You see, there was a male Mello that preceded Olivia by 2 years, and it appeared that they would be very similar by nature. Brother played the drums in Louisville Leopards. Olivia played the drums in Louisville Leopards. Brother chose the viola in the 6th grade, and when Olivia showed up in my class for the first time, she also chose the viola. Brother never practiced his instrument, but Olivia always did. I learned once again, just like my own children, that all siblings can be different. I mentioned earlier that Olivia is a visual artist, a lover of animals, athlete, academic, and overall beautiful person. Still, I will focus on what truly matters, and that is the musical side of Olivia Milo. Since the 6th grade, I've worked with Olivia, and she is the most talented violist I have ever conducted at collegiate. My comments in her grade report over the past 6.5 years refer to her accurate intonation, rhythmic perfection, and beautiful musicianship. In addition, she received the highest rewards at solo contests and spurred a viola revolution after her first year in the upper school class. Why did the numbers more than double in the section the following year? Because of Olivia Milo? I think so. Why did so many students want to follow in the footsteps of Olivia? Every 8th grade viola player matriculating to collegiate after Olivia's freshman year wanted to join the viola love. Olivia spent the past 4 years nurturing and creating the perfect viola section. Olivia's viola section is a special place, a safe place, and only viola players understand the comfort of the viola section. If you didn't know, a viola is a bowed string instrument that can play pitches from the bass and treble clef. The violists decided not to upset the violins who play the treble clef or the cellists who play in the bass clef. They wanted to remain neutral and play the alto clef. Olivia's viola section is the Switzerland of the orchestra. They don't argue with each other if someone plays a wrong note or a rhythm. They don't call each other out when they screw up an entrance. Violinists always let each other know who messed up because they are constantly jockeying for the top position. Olivia's viola section would never throw anybody under the bus. Instead, they help each other, so they don't need to ever be in the limelight. Olivia's viola section has the most fun compared to the rest of the orchestra. The beginning of the year, I witnessed a rhythmic exercise where the violinists, cellists, and the bassist had to clap out a rhythm they had to demonstrate it. Some of them clapped their heads and some of them just clapped, while the viola section decided that they would spank their butts in unison for the final presentation. I think I will end this introduction the way I would end one of Olivia's quarter comments. Olivia, thank you for the effort you display in strings every day. We appreciate your talent, professionalism, and humor. I know you will continue to experience success on the viola when you leave for school next year. The orchestra will miss your beautiful heart and your beautiful tone. Thank you.
There are many things I could have talked about for my senior speech. My glucose intolerance, which is a real thing, my adventures at the hospital sophomore year, or why I'm superior to every single one of you for driving a 2008 Toyota Matrix. But ultimately, I settled on what sounds like the most boring topic of all, my viola. I actually really enjoy playing viola, and now this may not seem like a big deal, but as we all know, violas are a hated instrument. But I wasn't always a violist. I've played dozens of instruments in my lifetime, notably in 3rd grade when I was forced to learn how to play cello at my school, as it was the only option. So why would I drop such a respected and dignified instrument as a cello? Because I hated it. I hated it so much that my cello was put through multiple counts of abuse. The first time was when I got so angry playing that I threw my bow on the ground and the hair exploded from the tip. Let's say my mother was not happy, in fact, she was raging. The second time my cello was abused was when I dropped it down a stone staircase of 20 steps in a thin case, and the worst part is, it didn't even break. So I continued to play that cello. I tried to make it less torturous by playing the easy parts in class, but Miss Gina refused to let me be happy and forced me to play the difficult parts. When I came to collegiate in 6th grade, I got the option to choose which string instrument I wanted to play. Cello was an obvious pass. I didn't like the awful sound of beginner violins, and basses were too big, so viola was the perfect choice. The deep, warm, and mellow sounds of the viola had seduced me, and I was more than willing to give in. In 6th grade, we all played the same parts and songs, so I didn't have an idea of what it meant to be a violist until 7th grade, when we played fan dance. When the joys of violas were made known to me, when we played 15 measures of slurred eighth notes consisting of 2 different notes. It's safe to say we nailed that section most of the time. It was in 8th grade when my viola superiority complex developed. I quickly became first chair to lead my section, and it was so easy to feel good about yourself when there were certain individuals who were so terrible by choice. That superiority quickly ended when I came to the high school orchestra. Not only was I last chair, which was expected as a freshman, but the viola section as a whole was so made fun of, even the basses got more respect than us. Around this time, my brother quit playing viola, and my parents were furious as they had just bought it. But luckily, I was willing to take that viola and start lessons with Mr. Lerner. This viola, which I named Brenda, was absolutely too big for me. I couldn't get my 4th finger where it needed to be, and my shoulder was always taken over by the girth of Brenda's bottom. With time, my hands grew a bit, but to this day, 4th finger is still a struggle, which is so tragic. While playing viola, I've had many notable experiences. The first I can remember was 8th grade when I poked Georgia Good in the eye with my bow, and she started sobbing, causing Mr. Lerner's stress vein to pop out. Another was freshman year, when the rehearsal before our concert, my C string broke, and lucky me, there were no extras. I ended up playing on some old cracked viola that seemed constantly out of tune, but it could have been me. Then there was the time when I was the only violist at school that day, and after faking a nosebleed so I could leave class because the music was too hard, Ben Johnson had taken my viola, was playing it, and didn't notice I had come back. So I didn't get it back until he had finished the piece he was playing, and I had to sit awkwardly behind him until Mr. Lane finally noticed I was sitting near tears because I was too scared to ask for it back. Junior year rolled around, and I was the oldest viola player as there were no seniors who wanted to play. This meant I was back in the spotlight, as much as a viola player can be. With this new year, new freshmen came along, including a loud group of second violins. Day after day, these freshmen made any and every viola joke you can think of. And while I'm sure they thought they were being funny and creative, I had heard these jokes more times than I've seen my brother this year. That is when I learned the practice of patience and willpower, as it took all my willpower to be patient with those violins and not throw my bow their way. I continued lessons outside of class with Mr. Lerner, where half the time was spent playing and the other half messing around, telling stories, or freaking out as I almost dropped my viola again. I'm grateful to have Mr. Lerner to put up with me because I can be difficult. Sorry, Mr. Lerner. But viola lessons have taught me something, other than how to play viola, of course. They've taught me a solid work ethic and that practice is actually important to improve, although it is very rare I practice for school pieces now. Sorry, Mr. Learner. Now, let's talk about how deep my love for my viola goes. When asked what one of the most important things in my life is, I usually answer quickly and surely with my viola. Sorry, family and friends. When I first saw a scratch on my viola, I was furious. Who would dare disrespect me and scratch my beloved? Me. I would. While I am the section leader, I'm no prodigy. I mess up a lot, which I'm sure is a surprise to everyone, except the people who sit on either side of me and laugh when it happens. And although I don't mind messing up anymore, when I get really focused, I just frown, which has caused me to have a permanent frown line. Viola has helped me come to terms that it's okay to make mistakes, and I can be much happier just playing than trying to be perfect. When I play my viola, I'm reminded of how soothing it is and how I can make that piece of wood sound decent. It's the perfect middle ground for any person. Not too squeaky, not too bassy, gets some and more easier parts, and it's the perfect size to play. And due to the lack of expectations for violists, it's surprisingly easy to succeed. Even on the worst day and in the worst of moods, playing that viola always helps. Although I know it seems like it, and it's very likely you won't believe me, being a violist isn't my only personality trait. But that being said, violas are the best. Thank you.
Our second speaker today is Lance Fieri. Lance will be introduced by his dad, Steve Fieri.
As many of you know, Lance is a triplet. It was an interesting experience, to say the least, raising 3 children born on the same day. He was the first to come home, the first to crawl and walk. He rarely stood still. We used to call him the closer because he was always interested in finishing the bottles that his siblings left behind. Lance is never afraid to try new things. Whether it's front flips, back flips, some skateboard trick, new food, learning a song on the piano, or an open field rabona on the soccer field. It usually ended in spectacular fashion, one way or another, but he was never afraid to try. His willingness to explore new things is what I admire about him the most. He's a risk taker, unlike his dad, and I love him for that. So now I'd like to introduce to you Lance Fieri.
In the latter months of 2019, I began my very influential career as a SoundCloud rapper. Known under the moniker Lonk, given to me by my fellow classmates, I was destined to succeed. When my first song with Tasty Memes went live on SoundCloud in 2020, I wasn't surprised to see the extremely positive feedback on such a legendary song and artist combination. I had people from our school comment things such as, "Sheesh, that's tough, cuz," with multiple Z's, I might add. And others quickly followed suit. I had offers now from people like Sasha Levine wanting me to use their beats in the next song, and others wanting to feature on the album. All this talk about me had my ego going through the roof in a pretty tough time that would be the first quarantine. I was in the right headspace, and I would soon create something that the world had never seen before. My debut album, Quarantined in Paradise. This was the first, and at the time of creating this speech, the only album I would release under this account. My anticipation for the work may have blinded my decision-making, because when I dropped the album, I soon realized it was horrible, absolutely awful. I listen back to some of the songs every once in a while and just hear how unfinished they sound. It sounds like I used the headphones on my earbuds. Scratch that, I actually did use the headphones on the earbuds. But that isn't the point of the story. After making this horrible album, 2 of my closest friends outside of school were quick to make fun of a handful of my songs. And they challenged me that the 3 of us could make a better album in one single day. This challenge would soon pave the legacy to the greatest trio to ever come out of the J-Town area, Reef Audie. If your ears have not yet been blessed by a Fieri song, then I have no other emotion to share with you but sadness. Everybody deserves to hear the sounds as angelic as the ones we have created, and if you give it a listen, you may cry tears of joy too. That first album we made in one single day, yeah, it turned out to be even hotter garbage than what I created myself. Who would have known that reading the back of a Monster Energy can's ingredients would be a bad idea? I sure didn't at the time. Although some of the ideas for our music were a little suspect when we started, we have made some of my favorite works together. Some songs, like Wrong Side of the Road or Scooter Ankle, are based on true stories put into a musical lens, while others we have made are purely from our imagination. Some of my favorite songs fall under the latter, and they're always really fun to create. We have created a complete storyline for one specific character throughout his entire life, and we are nearing the end of the last album about him. We started off with his life as in elementary school and what that meant to him, and slowly throughout the albums let him grow up and face new challenges. The songs are a joke, but they have a lot to them, especially the later songs where he's nearing his death. We have not finished the last album, but we have finished about 6 or 7 songs as of writing the speech. From the beginning to the end of his story arc, you can hear the amount of work and practice that we have built up and learned throughout the hundreds of songs we have created together. And when I say hundreds, I mean it. I have a Google Drive folder with at least 400 songs on it, and there are more that we still have not added to the drive. But with that last album, it's all about his last memories. He has a lot to say, and he longs to be a kid again. Life was so much easier for him back then. And he has a hard time finding out what he needs currently. His story arc is an interesting mix of albums, mostly making little sense unless you're creating the songs with us, as many focal points have ended up being inside jokes in our friend group. I would probably release one of these Fieri singles I like best when I release my own music. Music isn't all fun for me, but it is a way for me to express myself and grow my friendship. Before starting Fieri, I was falling out with my 2 best friends because all of us were going to different schools. Making music with them started a new passion for me and fired up a long-lasting friendship that I feel like I will never lose. Whenever I make a song, I think of all the past stuff we have created, jokingly or with serious intent. Music became a fresh start for all 3 of us, and it has proved to be something we all strongly connect with and hold close to our hearts. I may never be the best at making good songs, but I don't really think I want to anyways. Having fun with what I do has always been the reason I started, and I don't think that will ever change. I have started to create a new album that I'm going to release on Lonk. I'm seeing it as a new start, especially since my first album was so bad. I'm not fully taking it seriously, but I did put a lot of time into the songs. Tomorrow, I'm going to drop a single that shows you the progress I've made since the last time posting a song, and I would appreciate it if everyone in here would give it a listen. Thank you. You don't have to, but it would be really cool if I could get some good feedback on what I make. If it does well, I'll probably have a better chance of posting the album that I'm working on. But I make the songs for me more than anyone else, so I may just end up not posting it anyways. I think the single I have coming out has turned out really good, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. I think with enough support, we could definitely get Jack Harlow on the remix. Thank you.
Our third speaker today is Nina Coombs. Nina will be introduced by her dad, Mike Coombs.
Good morning. My name is Mike Coombs, and Nina asked me to introduce her today for her senior speech. And it's going to be pretty easy because she's not just my daughter, she's my friend. So I'm going to tell you a few things about Nina that you may or may not know. First of all, she's competitive. She's played 6 sports during her time at collegiate, 7 if you count the 1 day of field hockey practice. Musicals played a big part of her life here at collegiate, along with the plays. She wants to be a leader. She hates being late. She leaves our house every morning It's 7 o'clock, and we only live 15 minutes away from school. She's a rule follower. You are a rule follower, right? All right. She makes friends easily. She loves to travel and ride bikes. She sets goals and can work on them for years. She doesn't get embarrassed by Laura or myself anymore, unless I try to do something like start a wave here today. So I'm going to ask for your help, starting from here, moving this way on the count of 3, if we can give her a wave. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! All right. With that, I give you Nina Coombs.
Oh my, okay. He really did it. Okay. Hi, everyone. So, just like every other senior, I thought for a really long time about what I wanted to write my senior speech about. Since I've been at collegiate since first grade, I have known about this major part of graduation for quite a while. Then freshman year came around and I started listening to my first speeches and coming up with hundreds of ideas on what I would end up writing about. Unfortunately, I feel the need to offer a heads up to the underclassmen in the audience doing the same thing right now. There is a 99% chance that you won't be remembering many of those super cool ideas by the time it's your turn to be up here. Now, that's not me telling you to stop coming up with new ideas, because while it would have been really nice to have known my speech topic for the past 3 years, it's also good to think about what parts of your life have impacted you enough to write a whole speech over. So, what parts of my life did I used to think were important enough to talk about for 10 whole minutes? Thanks to Jack's speech, all of you have already heard about my Doctor Who phase from 4th to 6th grade. I will admit, I may have been a little bit obsessed with the show in the past, and sometimes I still think of references in the middle of conversations. I hated that I was obsessed with the show for a really long time after my passion died down, but it's hard to hide something that has encompassed such a large part of your thoughts for 2 whole years. I decorated my entire room with British flag blankets laid out on my bed. A sonic screwdriver was hiding amongst my pencils in my desk, and I had a door-sized sticker of the TARDIS that was stuck to the back of my bedroom door. I was even convinced that I was going to move to England to go to college or to start my acting career and be the first female doctor on the show. Unfortunately, since then, there has been a female doctor, so little 5th grade Nina had to aspire to bigger and better things. The next thing on my possible list of speech ideas was my hair. Hair has always been a way that I found I could change it up a little bit when I wanted or needed to. I've tried many different colors, including my natural brunette hair that stuck with me from infancy all the way to 8th grade, my full-on blonde freshman year, my dirty blonde, whatever you want to call it now. But I also threw in a few temporary dyes, such as purple, pink, red, and even blue. And I've also had hair down to my butt, as well as hair that stopped at my shoulders. I think that my most influential hairstyle, however, definitely happened around the same time as my Doctor Who phase. I got a pixie cut. Yes, a pixie cut. That insanely short, right to the scalp haircut that will forever hold a horrible place in my heart. Now, I would like to preface this by saying that most people that have pixie cuts do look pretty great. But let me just set the scene. It's 2014, and a little 4th grade girl is in the hair salon one day waiting for her mom to finish up a trim so that she could go to Target and look at all of the toys in the dollar section. Anyways, while she's waiting, the little girl is looking at the hair magazines on the coffee table next to her and sees an image of the stunning Scarlett Johansson with her freshly chopped pixie cut. If you couldn't tell, that little girl was me, and that was the moment that I decided that my prepubescent self would look just as beautiful and elegant as Mrs. Johansson if I got her haircut. I'm sure you can also assume I did not, in fact, look like the image that I was aspiring to, and I have a feeling that not having a team of makeup artists and a wardrobe full of designer dresses could have been a pretty impactful part of that. Only about 2 weeks after having this new do, the joy of getting the new cut died off, and the realization that I would have to wait years for it to grow back sank in. It was in that moment that my love of my short hair had also stopped being an obsession, and I realized I had to move on. Now, let's move out of my middle school phases and move into something that has stuck with me for all 18 years of my life. My entire life, I have been obsessed with music. I love listening to my favorite artists, and I also love singing any song that I know the lyrics to. Seriously, almost 100% of the time, it's easy to tell if I know a song based on whether or not I'm singing. Because if I know the lyrics and the tune, nothing can stop me from belting every verse and chorus. The strange thing about my music taste is that I have only recently started actually listening to new music. Some of you might have no clue what I mean by this, but a few of you in this room know that anytime I am on Aux, which is a rarity on its own, I will most likely play one of my 2000s playlists that consist of Miley Cyrus, Maroon 5, Jason Derulo, Owl City, and David Guetta, and many, many more. I'm sure I'm going to make quite a few of the adults in the room shake their heads in embarrassment when I say that this playlist I'm referring to is actually titled My Type of Classics. And while many of these said adults shaking their heads would probably never categorize these artists as classics, I would tell them to listen to Fireflies by Owl City or She Will Be Loved by Maroon 5, and then get back to me. But let me get back to my point. Music has always been a comfort for me. I have a song connected to almost every one of my core memories, and unlike my two previous obsessions, music has never, and I dare say will never, lose its place in my heart. So pretty much overall, I know every person here has and will continue to have plenty of obsessions and phases throughout their lives. But just remember that every one of those odd parts, whether insanely cool or horribly embarrassing, make up who you are, and you should never try to hide them. Learn to laugh at the parts that you want to keep hidden, and don't be afraid to boast every once in a while about the parts that you are proud of. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, let's give these three beautiful people another round of applause. I'm just wanting to hype up Lance's single tomorrow, which is currently entitled Untitled. Okay? So everyone look out for that. Give it a good listen. Have a great